and we are on to the seventh best team, John Morrissey's in the 11, where we have them in seventh, but the fans have them in eighth, a little bit more pessimistic about the Indy 11 than we are. This is a team that made a run that could not lose ever, and then they really started losing. What's different about this team?
Yeah, Augie Williams out, Tyler Gibson out, Douglas Martinez and Adrian Dispay, same thing. They brought in a lot of big players. Edward Kiza up top, Bruno Rendon coming in from NOCO, Siaha in goal, Reese Charles Cook in goal, and Hunter Solt on loan again in goal. I personally am a big fan of James Murphy in the midfield, but there's even more signings I'm not adding because Indy has done a lot in the market.
Ryan, we talked about Augie, but they trade Lily Ball striker for kind of Lily Ball striker, I guess, soon to be, with Edward Kiza. And they also bring in Elvis Samo, another guy who really has been in the USL streets for a long, long time. Do they have the goal scoring to keep up? Because we know what they have with Blake. We know what they have with Quinn and Murphy in terms of what they can produce passing wise, but do they have the guys to finish it?
Yeah, that was what really fascinated me by the signings of Kiza, Murphy, Mo. We know what Ado Quinn can do as well, but that not only were they getting quality players in their signings, but they were taking away these players from your Detroits, from your Pittsburgh teams they were in direct competition with in the heart of the Eastern Conference playoff race. You take away Murphy and a Mo out of Detroit, I don't think Detroit has that 5-point gap over Indy 11 from the table from last year. I think these are players who will just fit in really well with this team. That if they look at this kind of start of their season, Miami, Lexington, Colorado Springs, North Carolina, and Hartford, that's a really favorable first 5 starting games this year. They have the home opener against the league champions from last season, but this could be an Indy 11 team who starts the year very hot.
John, this is of course your team, right? And there's a lot of questions I have for you. I think the first one is, do you start Siaha over Solt?
For me, the answer is yes. I think Solt, as good as he was last summer, like you mentioned, that kind of open cup swoon where they were doing real well and then something changed in the chemistry where they kind of dropped off. A lot of that was just Hunter Solt coming back to earth. Siaha, he's maybe a little bit less of a high kind of guy, but he's very consistent, been one of the better goalkeepers in this league for a couple of years, has a little bit more of a veteran presence. To me, he's the pick, but Sean McCauley's never afraid to make the change, so we're going to see both over the course of the year.
Ryan, when we were looking at players, especially from our now defuncts in NOCO, in Central Valley, and Memphis 901, well, all of Memphis 901 players went to, like, I think Iraq. I think there's like 3 players that went to the same team in Iraq. It was weird. And then everybody else just kind of got spread around. Rendon, arguably the best right back free agent on the market this last year. And the comments kind of talked about it, where Foster and Rendon on that right hand side together. Is that where you're really circling where this attack's going to be coming from?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really interesting part to be where this attack is going to build up from. You're going to see Rendon very much involved in this team, him kind of moving into the year that Indy 11 should be at least an incredibly fun team to watch.
John, there's just so much. Like I said, there's so much I want to ask you about this team, but I guess for you, what are you circling in this squad? Like, what is the make and what is the break for this team?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the make for me is the consistency of the offense. Indy really felt well organized at the best of times defensively, and given the talent, given that midfield, I don't think that's going to be a question this year. But can the offense be consistent enough? Like Aiden Stanley started off last season picking up assists every time he went out, and then defenses started paying attention, and then he kind of didn't have that secondary creator from wide. Bruno Rendon feels like the kind of guy who can add the complement on the right. Can Edward Kizza be the scorer Indy needs? I tend to think so, and I think he's a perfect fit for that very direct style that Sean McCauley likes. But you never know. So can Jack Blake pick up the pace and do more than just be a penalty merchant? Can Malik Foster kind of add in a couple goals from the wing? There are enough players here of high quality that I think Indy's going to rotate the squad quite a bit to find the mix. Don't over-rotate would be my word of caution, because you need to build that chemistry. Like, there's a lot of things to recommend this team, but you can also see how it goes wrong. And just given my Indy pessimism, I think that's kind of weighing on my consideration of this team.
Any final thoughts before I read out the starting 11? All right. It is going to be a 5-2-3. Drink every time you hear that one too. Where you have Ziaha in goal, and going from left to right, you have Stanley on the left wing. You have O'Brien, Hogan, and Ofemu in the central center backs. And then you have Rendon on the right. You have Quinn and Murphy making up that midfield. And up top, you have Blake on the left, Foster on the right, and Kizza up top.